The cosmic calamity. The crystalline spires of Zephyria glimmered faintly in the dying light of their sun. Once a beacon of hope in the cosmos, the planet now stood as a testament to the cruel whims of celestial fate. The Zephyrians, a race of beings as ethereal as they were ancient, faced an extinction-level event that no amount of their advanced technology could prevent. Lyra, her translucent skin shimmering with bioluminescent patterns of distress, clutched her young daughter Nova close to her chest. They stood at the viewing port of one of the last evacuation ships, watching as their homeworld grew smaller in the distance. Nova's tiny form trembled, her own bioluminescence pulsing in sync with her mother's, a primal comfort in the face of unimaginable loss. "Mother," Nova's voice quivered, barely audible above the hum of the ship's engines. "Will we ever see home again?" Lyra's four eyes, each a swirling galaxy of silver and blue, looked down at her child. How could she explain the finality of their situation to one so young? "Our home, little one, is wherever we are together," she said softly, her words carrying the weight of a truth she herself struggled to accept. The evacuation had been chaotic. Millions of Zephyrians left behind, their fate sealed by the impending nova of their star. Lyra and Nova were among the lucky few, if such a term could be applied to their dire circumstances. Their ship, along with a handful of others, carried the last hope for their species' survival. As they journeyed through the vast expanse of space, Lyra couldn't help but reflect on the irony of their situation. The Zephyrians, for all their technological marvels and scientific achievements, had been undone by the very cosmic forces they had spent millennia studying. Their hubris in believing they could control the stars had led to this moment, fleeing from the apocalyptic consequences of their ambition. Days turned into weeks as their ship, guided by ancient star charts and desperate hope, searched for a new home. Nova grew restless, her young mind unable to fully grasp the enormity of their plight. Lyra did her best to maintain a sense of normalcy, teaching Nova about the stars and sharing stories of their people's history. It was during one such lesson that disaster struck. The ship's alarms blared to life, their piercing wail cutting through the artificial calm that had settled over the refugees. Lyra's tendrils curled in alarm as she rushed to the nearest information terminal, Nova clinging to her robes. "Warning. Anomaly detected," the ship's AI announced, its usually melodic voice now sharp with urgency. "Unknown space-time disturbance approaching. Brace for impact." Lyra's mind raced. In all their travels, in all the records of their people, there had never been an encounter with an anomaly that their technology couldn't navigate. What fresh cruelty had the universe devised for them? She scooped Nova into her arms and made for the safety pods. Around them, other Zephyrians moved with purposeful grace, their fear evident only in the rapid pulsing of their bioluminescent patterns. "What's happening, Mother?" Nova asked, her young voice tinged with fear. "Stay calm, my star," Lyra soothed, even as her own heart raced. "Remember what I taught you about the unexpected. We adapt, we overcome." They reached the pods just as the ship shuddered violently. Through the viewports, Lyra could see the fabric of space itself seeming to warp and twist. Colors that had no right existing in the vacuum of space loomed like toxic flowers, beautiful and terrifying. With practiced movements, Lyra secured Nova in a pod, her tendrils working swiftly to activate the safety protocols. "Listen to me, Nova," she said urgently, locking eyes with her daughter. "No matter what happens, know that I love you. You carry the spirit of our people within you. Be brave, be kind, and never lose hope." Nova nodded, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and determination that broke Lyra's heart. As the pod sealed shut, Lyra allowed herself one moment of vulnerability, pressing her hand against the transparent surface, matching it with Nova's smaller one on the other side. The moment was shattered as the ship lurched again, more violently this time. Lyra stumbled, barely managing to secure herself in a pod adjacent to Nova's. As the safety systems engaged, she caught one last glimpse of her daughter before the world around them erupted into chaos. The anomaly engulfed their ship, tearing through shields and hull, as if they were no more substantial than dreams. Lyra felt a sensation she had never experienced before, as if every atom of her being was being pulled apart and reassembled in rapid succession. Through the anomaly engulfed their ship, tearing through shields and hull, as if they were no more substantial than dreams. Lyra felt a sensation she had never experienced before, as if every atom of her being was being pulled apart and reassembled in rapid succession. Through the pain and disorientation, one thought burned brighter than all others: Nova. When the madness subsided and Lyra's senses slowly returned to her, she found herself surrounded by twisted metal and sparking circuitry. The escape pod had been torn open, its protective casing now little more than scrap. With a groan, she pulled herself from the wreckage, her body aching in ways she hadn't thought possible. The landscape that greeted her was alien in every sense of the word. Twin suns hung low on the horizon, bathing the rocky terrain in an eerie reddish glow. The air was thick and humid, carrying scents that her olfactory senses struggled to process. But none of that mattered. Where was Nova? Nova. Lyra called out, her voice hoarse. Nova, where are you? Panic began to set in as she scanned the crash site. Debris from their ship was scattered across a wide area, some pieces still smoldering. Other pods had made it to the surface, but many lay ominously still. A faint cry caught her attention, and Lyra moved with a speed she didn't know she possessed. There, half buried under a sheet of metal, was Nova's pod. With strength born of desperation, Lyra tore at the debris, ignoring the cuts and bruises she sustained in the process. I'm here, my star, she called out. Mother's coming. Finally, she reached the pod. Its casing was cracked, but it had held together better than her own. With trembling tendrils, Lyra activated the emergency release. The pod hissed open, and there was Nova, curled into a ball, her bioluminescence flickering weakly. Lyra gathered her daughter into her arms, relief washing over her. Nova, are you hurt? Speak to me, little one. Nova's eyes fluttered open, all four of them focusing slowly on her mother's face. Mother, she whispered, I was so scared. I know, my brave girl, Lyra soothed, running a tendril gently over Nova's head. But we're together now. Everything will be all right. As she held her daughter close, Lyra took stock of their situation. The crash had scattered the Zephyrian refugees across what appeared to be a vast desert. In the distance, she could see others emerging from their pods, their bioluminescent patterns flashing in distress signals. But something was wrong. Lyra could feel it in the air, in the way her skin tingled unpleasantly. This planet, wherever it was not meant for Zephyrian physiology. Already, she could sense her energy reserves depleting at an alarming rate. Mother, I don't feel well, Nova murmured, her small form shivering despite the oppressive heat. Lyra's hearts clenched with fear. They needed shelter, needed to find a way to protect themselves from this hostile environment. But as she looked around at the barren landscape, hope seemed as scarce as the life-giving crystals of their lost homeworld. In that moment, as one sun dipped below the horizon and the other flared with renewed intensity, Lyra made a silent vow. She would find a way to save Nova, to ensure that the legacy of Zephyria lived on. No matter the cost, no matter the challenges this alien world presented, she would persevere. For Nova, for their people, for the future they had risked everything to secure. With Nova cradled in her arms, Lyra began to move across the alien terrain. Each step was a struggle against the planet's higher gravity, each breath a battle with the thick, unfamiliar air. But she pressed on, her eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of shelter or resources they could use. As they traveled, Lyra began to notice unsettling details about their new environment. Strange, crystalline formations jutted from the ground at irregular intervals, pulsing with an inner light that seemed almost alive. The ground beneath their feet occasionally shifted, as if the entire planet was restless. Nova's condition worsened as they walked. Her breathing became labored, and her usual vibrant colors began to fade. Lyra's scientific mind raced, trying to understand what about this planet was so antithetical to their biology. Was it something in the air, radiation from the twin suns, or something even more alien beyond her comprehension? As the second sun began to set, plunging the landscape into an eerie twilight, Lyra spotted what looked like a cave entrance in the distance. Hope surged within her. Perhaps within its depths, they could find respite from the hostile elements. But as they approached the cave, a low rumbling sound stopped Lyra in her tracks. The ground trembled beneath them, and from the cave emerged a creature unlike anything in Zephyrian records. It was massive, its body a shifting mass of what looked like living stone and crystal. Multiple appendages, somewhere between tentacles and stalactites, writhed in the air as it sensed their presence. Lyra's scientific curiosity warred with her maternal instinct to flee. This creature was a marvel, a life form adapted to this harsh world in ways she could scarcely imagine. But it was also a threat, an unknown variable in an equation where her daughter's life hung in the balance. The creature let out a sound that was felt more than heard, a deep vibration that resonated through Lyra's very being. Nova stirred in her arms, whimpering softly. "Sha, little one," Lyra whispered, her eyes never leaving the alien beast. "Be very still." Slowly, carefully, Lyra began to back away. Her mind raced, calculating possible escape routes, analyzing the creature's movements for any sign of aggression or curiosity. This was a dance of survival. One misstep could mean. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sound that didn't belong in this alien tableau. A sound that, despite its strangeness, sparked a flicker of hope in Lyra's heart. It was mechanical, artificial, the sound of engines. As Lyra turned her head towards the source of the noise, she saw something descending from the darkening sky. It was sleek, clearly a product of advanced technology, but unlike any Zephyrian design she had ever seen. The unknown craft touched down not far from where Lyra stood, kicking up a cloud of crystalline dust. The alien creature retreated into its cave, apparently as wary of this new arrival as it had been of Lyra and Nova. For a moment, everything was still. Lyra held her breath, her arms tightening protectively around Nova. Then, with a hiss of equalizing pressure, a hatch on the craft opened. And out stepped beings Lyra had only ever seen in ancient historical records. Bipedal, clad in protective suits, their faces obscured behind reflective visors. Humans, a species long thought to be nothing more than a myth, a cautionary tale of a civilization that had reached for the stars too quickly and burned out just as fast. Yet here they were, real and present, their technology clearly far beyond what those old stories had suggested. As the humans approached, their movements cautious but purposeful, Lyra felt a complex mix of emotions: fear of the unknown, hope for salvation, and a burning curiosity that even dire circumstances couldn't fully extinguish. One of the humans raised a device, pointing it towards Lyra and Nova. It emitted a soft blue light that washed over them, and Lyra instinctively turned to shield her daughter from whatever effects it might have. Then, to her utter astonishment, she heard a voice, not in the melodic tones of her own language, but in words she could somehow understand. "We mean you no harm," the voice said, tinny and artificial but clear. "Your distress signal was detected by one of our deep space relays. We're here to help." Lyra's mind reeled. A distress signal. Had their ship managed to send out a call for aid, even as it was torn apart? And these humans had not only received it, but had the capability to reach them. As the implications of this encounter began to sink in, Lyra felt Nova stir in her arms. Her daughter's eyes opened, all four of them focusing on the strange beings before them. "Mother," Nova whispered, her voice weak but filled with wonder. "Are they angels?" Lyra looked from her daughter to the humans, these impossible saviors who had arrived in their darkest hour. "No, my star," she said softly, a smile tugging at her lips despite their dire situation. "But they might be the next best thing." As the humans approached, their hands outstretched in a universal gesture of peace, Lyra felt something she had thought lost forever in the destruction of their homeworld. Stranded in an alien world, the human rescue team worked with an efficiency that both impressed and unsettled Lyra. Their movements were quick and decisive, a stark contrast to the fluid grace of Zephyrian physiology. As they set up a perimeter around the crash site, strange devices sprang to life, creating a shimmering dome of energy that encompassed the area. "Environmental shield," one of the humans explained, noticing Lyra's questioning gaze. The translation device gave their words an odd synthetic quality. "It'll filter out the worst of the atmospheric toxins and regulate the temperature. Should make things a bit more comfortable for you and the little one." Lyra nodded, grateful yet wary. Nova stirred in her arms, her bioluminescence flickering weakly. "My daughter," Lyra said, her voice tight with concern. "She needs help. Our bodies. This world is poison to us." The human nodded, gesturing to one of their companions. "Dr. Chen will take a look at her. Don't worry. We've dealt with xenobiology before." As the human doctor approached, Lyra felt a moment of instinctive protectiveness. These beings, myth made real, were their only hope for survival. And yet, the thought of entrusting Nova to their care sent ripples of anxiety through her luminescent patterns. Dr. Chen seemed to sense her hesitation. With slow, deliberate movements, they removed their helmet, revealing a face that was at once alien and somehow familiar. 2 eyes, not 4, looked at Lyra with an expression she recognized as compassion. "I know this must be frightening for you," Dr. Chen said, their voice softer without the helmet's filter. "But I promise, we're here to help. May I examine your daughter?" Lyra looked down at Nova, whose eyes were now fixed on the human with a mixture of fear and fascination. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded, carefully transferring Nova to Dr. Chen's arms. As the doctor began their examination, using devices that hummed and glowed in ways Lyra couldn't comprehend, she took a moment to survey their surroundings. The environmental shield had indeed made a noticeable difference. The air felt cleaner, easier to breathe, and the oppressive heat had given way to a more tolerable warmth. Other humans were moving among the scattered debris, checking on the status of the few other Zephyrian survivors. Lyra felt a pang of guilt. In her focus on Nova, she had almost forgotten about her fellow refugees. How many had survived the crash? And of those, how many could survive this alien world? Her thoughts were interrupted by Dr. Chen's voice. "Your daughter is stable, but her condition is serious. The atmosphere of this planet is highly toxic to your species. We need to get her to our ship as soon as possible for more comprehensive treatment." Lyra's hearts clenched with fear. Will she survive? Dr. Chen's expression was grave, but not without hope. "We'll do everything we can. Your people are remarkably resilient, but we need to act quickly." As if to emphasize the doctor's words, a low rumble shook the ground. In the distance, beyond the shimmering barrier of the environmental shield, Lyra could see more of the crystalline creatures emerging from hidden crevices in the planet's surface. "Captain," one of the other humans called out, their voice urgent. "Seismic activity is increasing. Those creatures seem to be drawn to it. We need to evacuate now." The human captain, a tall figure with an air of authority, nodded sharply. "All right, people, let's move. Priority on the injured. Dr. Chen, you and your team take point with the critical cases." What followed was a flurry of activity that left Lyra feeling both impressed and overwhelmed. The humans moved with practiced precision, gathering the surviving Zephyrians and their salvageable belongings. Lyra found herself ushered towards the human ship, Nova cradled securely in Dr. Chen's arms. As they approached the vessel, Lyra couldn't help but marvel at its design. Sleek and angular, it seemed to absorb the light from the setting suns rather than reflect it. It was a far cry from the organic, crystalline architecture of Zephyrian ships. The interior of the ship was a maze of corridors and chambers, each humming with technology that was both familiar and utterly foreign to Lyra. She was led to what appeared to be a medical bay, where Dr. Chen and their team immediately set to work on Nova and the other critically injured Zephyrians. "Your daughter is strong," Dr. Chen said as they worked, their hands moving with swift assurance over Nova's small form. "Her body is already adapting, fighting against the toxins. With the right treatment, I believe she'll pull through." Lyra wanted to believe those words with every fiber of her being. She watched, feeling helpless, as the human medical team applied treatments and technologies she could scarcely comprehend. Patches that seemed to glow with an inner light were placed on Nova's skin. Machines hummed and pulsed, their displays showing readings that meant nothing to Lyra, but seemed to encourage the human doctors. Hours passed, though in the artificial environment of the ship, time seemed to lose all meaning. Lyra drifted in and out of exhausted sleep, never straying far from Nova's side. When she was awake, she found herself studying the humans, trying to reconcile the beings before her with the myths and legends she had grown up with. They were so much smaller than she had imagined, their bodies seemingly fragile compared to the crystalline resilience of Zephyrian physiology. And yet, they moved with a surety and purpose that spoke of inner strength. Their faces, with only 2 eyes, were expressive in ways Lyra found fascinating. She began to learn to read their emotions, to see the determination in their set jaws, the compassion in their eyes. As the human ship broke free of the planet's atmosphere, leaving behind a hostile world that had nearly claimed their lives, Lyra felt a complex mixture of emotions. Grief for their lost homeworld, fear for their uncertain future, but also a growing sense of wonder at the unlikely alliance they had found. Nova's condition stabilized under the constant care of Dr. Chen and their team. Her color began to return, the bioluminescent patterns beneath her skin pulsing with increasing strength. When she finally opened her eyes, all 4 of them focusing on Lyra with recognition and relief, Lyra felt a surge of joy so intense it sent ripples of light cascading across her own skin. "Mother," Nova said, her voice weak but clear. "The angels. They saved us." Lyra smiled, gently stroking her daughter's face. "Yes, my star. Though they call themselves humans, not angels, they've given us a second chance." As Nova drifted back to sleep, exhausted but healing, Lyra turned to find Dr. Chen watching them with a smile. The human doctor had dark circles under their eyes, testament to the long hours they had spent caring for the Zephyrian refugees. "Thank you," Lyra said, trying to infuse the simple words with the depth of her gratitude. "You've saved not just my daughter, but the future of our entire species." Dr. Chen's smile widened. "It's what we do. Humanity has come a long way since the days when we were just fumbling our way into space. We've learned that the universe is vast and often hostile, but it's also full of wonders. And the greatest wonder of all is when different species can come together, can help each other survive and thrive." Lyra nodded, understanding dawning. The myths of humanity she had grown up with, of a species that burned bright and fast, reaching for the stars only to fall back to their homeworld in ruin, were just that. Myths. The reality was far more incredible. These humans had not only survived but had grown, had learned, had become the very saviors they might once have needed themselves. As the human ship carried them deeper into space, towards an uncertain but hopeful future, Lyra realized that this was more than just a rescue. It was the beginning of something new. A partnership between species, a sharing of knowledge and culture that could reshape the very fabric of galactic civilization. Nova stirred in her sleep, her small hand reaching out. Lyra took it, marveling at the strength in that tiny grasp. They had survived the destruction of their homeworld, had faced the terrors of an alien planet, and had found salvation in the most unexpected of forms. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Lyra knew that they would face them together. Zephyrian and human, 2 species united by compassion and a shared love of discovery. As the stars streaked by outside the ship's viewports, Lyra allowed herself to hope, to dream of the future they would build. A future as bright and limitless as the cosmos itself. The human element. As the human ship, which Lyra learned was called the horizon, journeyed through the vastness of space. A new rhythm of life began to establish itself. The Zephyrian survivors, once they had recovered enough to leave the medical bay, were given quarters throughout the ship. Lyra and Nova shared a small but comfortable cabin, its walls adorned with softly glowing panels that reminded them of home. The humans, true to their word, continued to work tirelessly to ensure the health and comfort of their alien guests. But as the immediate crisis passed, new challenges arose, chief among them, the complexities of communication. Despite the remarkable effectiveness of the translation devices, there were concepts and ideas that simply didn't translate well between Zephyrian and human languages. Lyra, driven by both necessity and an insatiable curiosity, took it upon herself to bridge this gap. She spent hours each day in what the humans called the Cultural Exchange Center, a repurposed cargo bay filled with interactive displays and holographic projectors. Here, under the patient guidance of Dr. Ilara Voss, the ship's xenolinguist and cultural specialist, Lyra began to unravel the intricacies of human society. "Your species has such a rich history," Lyra remarked one day, her tendrils gently manipulating a holographic display of Earth's continents. "So much conflict, but also so much progress. How did you overcome your divisions to reach the stars?" Dr. Voss, a woman with silver hair and kind eyes, smiled wryly. "It wasn't easy, and I won't pretend we've solved all our problems. But I think what really pushed us forward was the realization that we're not alone in the universe. The first confirmed contact with alien life. It changed everything. Suddenly, our differences seemed small compared to the vast unknown of space." Lyra nodded, understanding. "It was similar for my people when we first developed interstellar travel. Though I must admit, humans were little more than legends to us. Stories of a species that reached too far, too fast." "Ah, yes," Dr. Voss chuckled. "We've heard similar tales from other species we've encountered. I suppose we did make quite a mess of things in our early days of space exploration. But we learned from our mistakes. We had to." As they talked, Nova played nearby with a group of human children. The young Zephyrian had adapted to life on the horizon with remarkable speed, her natural curiosity overcoming any lingering fear of their human saviors. Lyra watched as Nova attempted to teach the human children a Zephyrian game involving complex patterns of bioluminescence, while the human children showed her how to build structures with colorful interlocking blocks. "They don't seem to have any trouble communicating," Lyra observed, her heart's warming at the sight. Dr. Voss nodded. "Children have a wonderful ability to overcome barriers that often stump us adults. They don't overthink things. They just connect." As the days turned into weeks, Lyra found herself increasingly fascinated by human ingenuity. Their technology, while different from Zephyrian designs, was remarkably adaptable. She watched in awe as the ship's engineers modified environmental systems to better suit Zephyrian biology, creating pockets of crystalline growth throughout the ship that helped regulate the survivors' unique metabolic needs. But it wasn't just the technology that impressed Lyra. It was the humans' seemingly boundless creativity, their ability to find solutions to problems that the Zephyrians would never have considered. One particularly memorable incident occurred when Nova and several other Zephyrian children began to show signs of distress. Their bioluminescent patterns became erratic, and they complained of feeling dim inside. Dr. Chen was puzzled. All medical scans showed the children were physically healthy. It was Ensign Ravi Mehta, a young engineer with a penchant for thinking outside the box, who cracked the problem. "I think they're suffering from light deprivation," Ravi explained, his eyes bright with excitement. "Zephyrian physiology is intimately tied to their home star's specific wavelengths. They're not getting the right kind of light here on the ship." The solution Ravi and his team devised was both elegant and thoroughly human. They reprogrammed the ship's holographic systems to create a perfect replica of Zephyria's star cycle, complete with the unique spectral emissions that the Zephyrians' bodies craved. When the system was first activated in the main atrium, Lyra watched in amazement as Nova and the other children literally lit up, their bioluminescence pulsing with joy. "It's beautiful," Captain Sarah Chen, the Horizon's commanding officer, murmured as she stood beside Lyra, watching the Zephyrian children play in the simulated starlight. "I've seen a lot of wonders out here in the black, but this is something special." Lyra nodded, feeling a lump in her throat. "You've given us back a piece of home we thought lost forever. I don't know how we can ever repay such kindness." Captain Chen turned to her, her expression serious but kind. "You don't need to repay anything. This is what humanity strives to be now, a force for good in the galaxy. We've made plenty of mistakes in our past, but we're trying to learn, to be better." As Lyra spent more time with the humans, she began to understand the source of their strength. It wasn't their technology, impressive as it was. It wasn't even their adaptability, though that certainly played a part. No, the true power of humanity lay in their diversity, in the way they embraced differences and turned them into strengths. She saw it in the ship's crew, a microcosm of human society, with individuals from all corners of Earth and its colonies working together seamlessly. She saw it in their problem-solving approaches, where different perspectives and expertise combined to create solutions that no single individual could have devised. And she saw it in the way they approached the Zephyrians, not as strange aliens to be feared or studied from afar, but as fellow sentients to be welcomed and understood. One evening, as Lyra was helping Nova prepare for sleep, her daughter asked a question that caught her off guard. "Mother," Nova said, her bioluminescence pulsing with curiosity, "why didn't we know about the humans before? Why weren't they part of the galactic community?" Lyra paused, considering how to answer. "Well, my star, the universe is vast. There are many species out there, and we don't know about all of them. The humans, they developed differently from us. They kept to themselves for a long time, learning and growing." Nova nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I'm glad they didn't stay hidden. They're nice. Different, but nice." As Nova drifted off to sleep, Lyra found herself reflecting on her daughter's words. The humans were indeed different, in appearance, in culture, in their very way of thinking. But those differences had saved the Zephyrians. More than that, they offered hope for a future brighter than Lyra had dared to imagine in the dark days following their planet's destruction. The next morning, Lyra sought out Captain Chen. She found the human leader in the ship's arboretum, a vast chamber filled with plants from 100 worlds. The captain was tending to a delicate blue flower, its petals shimmering with an almost Zephyrian bioluminescence. "Captain," Lyra said, her tendrils rippling with determination, "I have a proposal." Captain Chen straightened, giving Lyra her full attention. "I'm listening. My people, we've lost so much. Our home, our history, nearly our entire civilization. But we still have our knowledge, our science. I believe that if we work together, Zephyrian and human, we could achieve things neither of our species could alone." The captain's eyes lit up with interest. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A true partnership," Lyra said, her bioluminescence pulsing with excitement. "Not just rescue and refuge, but a joining of our peoples. We could share our understanding of stellar dynamics, our advances in crystalline technology. In return, we could learn from your adaptability, your innovative approaches to problem solving." Captain Chen was quiet for a moment, her expression thoughtful. Then she smiled, extending her hand in a gesture Lyra had learned was a human sign of agreement. "I think that's an excellent idea, Lyra. It won't be easy. There will be challenges, misunderstandings, but I believe it's worth pursuing." As Lyra entwined her tendrils with the captain's hand, sealing their agreement in both human and Zephyrian fashion, she felt a surge of hope stronger than any she had experienced since the destruction of her homeworld. The journey ahead would be long and undoubtedly filled with challenges. But as she looked around the arboretum, at the harmonious blend of flora from across the galaxy, Lyra knew that together, Zephyrian and human, they could face whatever the universe had in store. The stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter, welcoming the dawn of a new era of interstellar cooperation. Race against time. The Horizon had been traveling for several months, its course set for a human colony world that had agreed to host the Zephyrian refugees. The ship hummed with a new energy, born from the growing collaboration between the two species. Lyra found herself at the heart of this alliance, working closely with human scientists to merge Zephyrian stellar knowledge with human technology. It was during one of these collaborative sessions that the first signs of trouble appeared. Lyra was in the astrophysics lab with Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a brilliant human scientist with a shock of white hair and a perpetual look of wonder in her eyes. They were discussing the potential applications of Zephyrian crystal technology in improving human faster-than-light travel when an alarm blared through the ship. "Attention all crew and passengers." Captain Chen's voice rang out, tense but controlled. "We've detected an anomaly in our path. All personnel report to your stations. This is not a drill." Lyra and Dr. Tanaka exchanged worried glances before rushing to the bridge. When they arrived, they found it a hive of activity. Crew members moved with purposeful urgency, their voices a mix of technical jargon and barely contained concern. Captain Chen stood at the center of it all, her eyes fixed on the main view screen. "Dr. Tanaka, Lyra, glad you're here. We could use your expertise." The screen showed a swirling mass of energy, beautiful and terrifying in its alien geometry. Streaks of color that had no right existing in the vacuum of space twisted and pulsed, distorting the very fabric of reality around them. Lyra felt a chill run through her luminescent patterns. "It's similar to the anomaly that destroyed our ship," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Tanaka nodded grimly. "Similar, but on a much larger scale. It's like nothing we've ever encountered before." Captain Chen turned to them, her expression grave. "Can we go around it?" Dr. Tanaka shook her head. "It's expanding too rapidly. At its current rate of growth, it'll engulf this entire sector within days. And we're right in its path," the captain finished. She turned to Lyra. "You've seen something like this before. Any ideas?" Lyra's mind raced, sifting through millennia of Zephyrian knowledge. "In our history, there are legends of cosmic storms, distortions in space-time that could swallow entire star systems. But they were just that, legends. We never had proof they actually existed." "Well, I'd say we have proof now," Captain Chen said dryly. "The question is, how do we stop it?" What followed was a frantic race against time. Human and Zephyrian worked side by side, pooling their knowledge and resources in a desperate bid to find a solution. Days blurred together as they worked around the clock, fueled by determination, and the stark realization that failure meant not just their own demise, but potentially the destruction of countless worlds in the anomaly's path. Nova, sensing the tension aboard the ship, tried to help in her own way. She organized the other Zephyrian children, their bioluminescence creating complex, soothing patterns throughout the ship's corridors. It was a small gesture, but one that brought moments of peace and focus to the exhausted crew. It was during one of these moments, as Lyra watched her daughter lead a group of Zephyrian and human children in a luminous dance, that inspiration struck. "The crystals," she breathed, her patterns flashing with sudden excitement. "Dr. Tanaka, what if we could use Zephyrian crystal technology to create a resonance field?" Dr. Tanaka's eyes widened as she grasped the implications. A field large enough to disrupt the anomaly's energy pattern. It could work, but we'd need an enormous amount of power. The ship's engines, Ensign Meta chimed in, his voice eager. "If we reroute all non-essential power and reconfigure the warp core, we might be able to generate enough energy." Captain Chen listened to their proposal, her expression a mix of hope and concern. "It's risky. We'd be sacrificing our ability to escape if this doesn't work." "With all due respect, Captain," Lyra said, her luminescence pulsing with determination, "if this doesn't work, there won't be anywhere to escape to." After a moment of tense silence, The captain nodded. Do it. What followed was a flurry of activity unlike anything the Horizon had ever seen. Human engineers worked alongside Zephyrian crystal specialists, reconfiguring systems and pushing the ship's technology to its limits and beyond. Lyra found herself at the heart of it all, her knowledge of Zephyrian crystal harmonics proving crucial to the plan's success. As she worked, she couldn't help but marvel at the humans' ability to adapt their technology on the fly, to push boundaries she would have thought impossible. As the anomaly loomed ever closer, filling the view screens with its chaotic beauty, the ship shuddered with the strain of their modifications. Crystals hummed throughout the horizon, their resonance building to a fever pitch. Energy levels at maximum. Ensign Meta called out, his voice tense. Crystal resonance field is stable, but only just. We won't get a second chance at this. Captain Chen stood at the center of the bridge, her posture rigid with determination. All hands, brace for impact. Lyra, Dr. Tanaka, it's your show now. Lyra stepped forward, her tendrils dancing over the crystal-enhanced controls. Dr. Tanaka stood beside her, human hands flying across a standard console. In that moment, the distinction between their species seemed to fade away. They moved as one, their actions synchronized in perfect harmony. Now, Lyra called out, her bioluminescence flaring bright. A beam of pure energy, shot through with crystalline patterns, lanced out from the horizon. It met the swirling chaos of the anomaly in a spectacular collision of light and color. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly at first, but with gathering speed, the anomaly began to unravel. The bridge erupted in cheers as the threat dissolved before their eyes, the fabric of space-time knitting itself back together. But their celebration was short-lived. Captain, the ship's AI announced, its tone urgent. The crystal resonance field is destabilizing. We're experiencing a cascade failure in all major systems. The jubilant atmosphere on the bridge evaporated instantly. Warning lights flashed across every console, and the ship groaned ominously around them. Can we restore power? Captain Chen demanded, already moving towards the engineering station. Ensign Meta shook his head, his expression grim. Negative, Captain. The power surge fried most of our systems. We're running on emergency backups, and those won't last long. Lyra felt a cold dread settle over her. They had saved countless lives, perhaps even the entire sector, but at what cost? Were they doomed to drift in space, their air slowly running out? As if sensing her thoughts, Nova appeared at her side, slipping her small hand into Lyra's. It'll be okay, Mother, she said, her young voice filled with a confidence Lyra wished she could share. The humans will think of something. They always do. Looking around at the determined faces of the human crew, Lyra wanted to believe her daughter's words. These remarkable beings had already achieved the impossible once today. Could they do it again? Captain Chen's voice cut through the chaos on the bridge. All right, people, we're not done yet. We saved the sector. Now it's time to save ourselves. I want options, and I want them now. As the humans sprang into action once more, Lyra felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, human and Zephyrian, united in their determination to survive. The race against time had entered a new phase, and the true test of their alliance was just beginning. A new beginning. The horizon drifted in the void, its once bustling corridors now eerily silent save for the occasional groan of stressed metal. Emergency lighting cast a dim, reddish glow throughout the ship, adding to the sense of foreboding that hung in the air like a physical presence. In the makeshift command center, the bridge having been abandoned due to structural instability, Captain Chen stood surrounded by a mix of human and Zephyrian faces. The tension was palpable, but so was the determination. All right, the captain said, her voice steady despite the dire circumstances. Let's review our situation. Ensign Meta, what's our power status? The young engineer shook his head grimly. Not good, Captain. We're running on the last of our emergency reserves. Life support is holding for now, but we got maybe 48 hours before it becomes critical. Dr. Tanaka spoke up next, her usual enthusiasm tempered by exhaustion. The good news is that the anomaly has completely dissipated. Our calculations show no chance of it reforming. The bad news is that the energy release fried most of our long-range communication systems. So we're alive, but stranded, Captain Chen summarized. Any chance of repairs? Some, Ensign Meta replied. But we're lacking critical components. The surge melted circuitry we don't have replacements for. As the humans discussed their options, Lyra found her gaze drawn to Nova. Her daughter sat in a corner with a group of both Zephyrian and human children, their bioluminescence creating a soft, comforting glow in the dim room. Despite the grim situation, the children seemed calm, even hopeful. Inspiration struck Lyra like a bolt of lightning. "The crystals," she said, her own bioluminescence flaring with excitement. "We might be able to use Zephyrian crystal technology to amplify what's left of your communication systems." All eyes turned to her as she explained her idea. The same crystals they had used to disrupt the anomaly could, in theory, be reconfigured to boost a distress signal. It would be weak, and there was no guarantee anyone would be in range to hear it. But it was a chance. Captain Chen didn't hesitate. "Do it," she ordered. "Ensign Meta, work with Lyra, and get that signal out. The rest of you, focus on extending our life support as long as possible. We need to buy ourselves time." What followed was a frenzy of activity. Human ingenuity melded with Zephyrian crystal expertise in ways neither species had ever imagined. Lyra worked tirelessly alongside Ensign Meta, their differences forgotten in the face of their shared goal. As hours ticked by, the makeshift crystal amplifier took shape. It was a thing of beauty, a delicate lattice of Zephyrian crystals interwoven with human circuitry, pulsing with an inner light that seemed to defy the gloom around it. "It's ready," Lyra announced, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. Captain Chen nodded. "Activate it." And then, we wait. The signal went out, a pulse of energy carrying with it the hopes of every soul aboard the Horizon. And then, as the captain had said, they waited. Hours passed with agonizing slowness. Life support systems began to falter, the air growing thin and stale. But still, they waited, clinging to hope with the stubborn determination that seemed to characterize both humans and Zephyrians. It was Nova who first noticed the change. "Mother," she said, her young voice cutting through the tense silence. "Look at the crystals." Lyra turned to the amplifier and gasped. The crystals were pulsing with a new rhythm, one she hadn't programmed. "It's a response," she breathed. "Someone's heard us." The news spread through the ship like wildfire, rekindling hope in hearts that had begun to despair. And not a moment too soon. Their life support was on its last legs, the air thin enough to make breathing a conscious effort. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL, the ship's AI announced, its voice weak but clear. Signatures match Earth fleet vessels. The cheer that went up was deafening, a release of tension and fear that had built up over days of uncertainty. Lyra found herself swept up in embraces, her bioluminescence pulsing in joyful harmony with the humans around her. Rescue operations began immediately. Earth fleet ships surrounded the Horizon, their advanced technology making short work of the repairs that had seemed impossible just hours before. As fresh air flowed through the ship and systems came back online one by one, the full impact of what they had achieved began to sink in. In the days that followed, as the Horizon limped towards the nearest human starbase under the watchful escort of the Earth fleet, Lyra found herself in countless debriefings and strategy sessions. The tale of their encounter with the anomaly, and more importantly, how they had overcome it, spread rapidly through human and Zephyrian circles alike. It was during one such meeting, nearly a week after their rescue, that Captain Chen made an announcement that would change everything. "The Earth Council has reviewed our reports," she said, addressing a room filled with both human and Zephyrian faces. They've decided to fast-track the integration of Zephyrian refugees into human society. More than that, they're proposing a formal alliance between our species. The room erupted in excited chatter. Lyra felt a swell of emotion so strong it sent waves of light cascading across her skin. This was more than she had ever dared to hope for. Furthermore, Captain Chen continued, a smile playing at her lips, they've greenlit a joint scientific mission. A new ship, crewed by both humans and Zephyrians, dedicated to studying and neutralizing spatial anomalies like the one we encountered. And they want us, all of us who were on the horizon, to lead it. As the implications of this sank in, Lyra found herself locking eyes with Dr. Tanaka. The human scientist's expression mirrored her own feelings, excitement, wonder, and a touch of nervousness at the magnitude of what lay ahead. Later, as Lyra stood with Nova in the observation deck of the starbase, watching ships of both human and Zephyrian design glide past the vast windows, she felt a profound sense of peace. "What happens now, Mother?" Nova asked, her young eyes wide with curiosity. Lyra smiled, drawing her daughter close. "Now, my star, we build a future. Together with the humans, we'll explore the cosmos, face its dangers, and uncover its wonders. We've been given a second chance, and we're going to make the most of it." As if to punctuate her words, a ship unlike any Lyra had seen before glided into view. Its design was a harmonious blend of human and Zephyrian aesthetics, sleek human lines interwoven with the crystalline structures favored by her people. On its hull, written in both human and Zephyrian script, was a name that made Lyra's heart swell with pride and hope. Harmony. "That's our new ship," she told Nova, her voice filled with awe. "It's a symbol of what we can achieve when we work together." Nova's bioluminescence pulsed with excitement. "Can we go see it up close?" Lyra laughed, a sound of pure joy. "Soon, my little one. Very soon." As they stood there, mother and daughter, the last survivors of a lost world looking out at a future bright with promise, Lyra reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the destruction of their homeworld to the brink of extinction, saved by the compassion and ingenuity of a species they had thought mere legend. The path ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, and obstacles to overcome. But as Lyra watched the Harmony prepare for its maiden voyage, she knew that together, human and Zephyrian, bound by shared experience and mutual respect, they could face anything the universe might throw at them. The stars beckoned, vast and mysterious. And this time, they would face them not alone, but hand in hand with their new allies, their new friends. The future, Lyra realized, was as limitless as the cosmos itself. Epilogue. Years later, on a planet far from both Earth and the lost world of Zephyria, a group of children, human and Zephyrian alike, gathered around an older Zephyrian, her once vibrant bioluminescence, now a soft, gentle glow. "Tell us the story again, Ambassador Nova," one of the human children pleaded, "about how your people met ours." Nova smiled, her 4 eyes twinkling with memories both bitter and sweet. "Very well," she said, her voice carrying the wisdom of years. "It began with a light in the darkness, with hope when all seemed lost. It's a story of 2 peoples, different in form, but alike in spirit, coming together to create something greater than either could have achieved alone." As Nova began her tale, the children leaned in close, their eyes wide with wonder. And high above them, visible even in the daytime sky, a fleet of ships bearing the insignia of the human-Zephyrian alliance prepared to embark on their latest mission of discovery. The harmony of 2 species, once thought impossible, now echoed across the stars, a testament to the enduring power of compassion, curiosity, and the unquenchable spirit of sentient life everywhere.